Hi, my name is Bill Nelson. I am the Grand Canyon Council Advancement Chair, and this will be a presentation on the Unit Eagle Scout Advisor or Mentor and what they need to know to get their job done. The term advisor or mentor for this unit level position is used interchangeably, and you will hear us use either advisor or mentor for this position. Many of you are familiar with the mission and aims of the Boy Scouts of America. You've read them in our literature and you may have heard about them in training sessions. The importance of the mission has not only to do with the making of ethical and moral choices, but that this should be done over one's lifetime. We're looking for long-term improvement here, life lessons. The Eagle Scout Service Project experience is one of these. What the Scout gets out of the project and takes with them through their life is a great deal more important than the project itself. You've probably heard about the aims of Scouting too. If not, jot them down. And as we go through this presentation, think about how the various parts of the service project apply to the aims. At the end, we will close the loop on that and see how you did. The Eagle Advisor starts the engagement at the Life Border Review, and your service should then continue through completion of the Eagle Border Review. Just as units work on a day-to-day basis in the rest of the advancement program, so should units provide the day-to-day mentoring to help Scouts through the service project process. To be a qualified Eagle Advisor, you need to be registered in any adult position in Scouting, and you need to be current in youth protection training, which is now mandatory to be registered, and you need to be approved by the unit leader. Now, the unit leader for a troop is the Scoutmaster. The unit leader for a crew is the crew advisor, and the unit leader for a ship is the skipper. What do you need to know to be an Eagle Advisor? Well, you need to know the current rank requirements. So get the latest version of the Scouts BSA handbook and review the rank requirements leading up to Eagle. You need to know what is the national policy surrounding the Eagle Scout process. Well, you can find all policies and procedures in the Guide to Advancement, which is available at scouting.org. In that pamphlet, there are different chapters, and in section 2, it talks about how advancement works in Scouts BSA. In section 8, it talks about boards of review, and the Eagle Scout Board of Review would be part of that chapter. And in section 9, it talks about the Eagle Scout rank. So you should be familiar with those 3 sections of the Guide to Advancement. On the Grand Canyon Council website, we do have an Eagle Scout page. So you should go to the Eagle Scout page that is there and become familiar with the Eagle Scout process. And we will talk more about that. And you should know how the process flows in your district. So to find the Eagle Scout process, as I mentioned before, you go to the council website, grandcanyonbsa.org, / Eagle Scout process, and you will find the Eagle Scout process. It's also under the advancement tab there. So the Eagle Scout process are these 6 steps. The first step is a read me first. We would like you to please download this file, click on it, open it up in Microsoft Word, and read it. The advisor should read it, the scout should read it, and the parent should read it. 99% of the questions and issues that come up and come to the council level can be avoided if a person reads this README first file. So before you do anything else, download that, open it up, and read it.
So what is your role as an advisor? Well, we already said that you're kind of the expert. Very often you're the key to success. Scouts need to be motivated. Scouts need to be reminded. Scouts need to know that, hey, they need to start the process as soon as they become a Life Scout. They should be getting their project done in their freshman year of high school, if not sooner, because high school gets very busy after that. These are things you know about because you've experienced it. You've experienced the Scouts going through these processes. So you're going to be the person who's going to remind them. You're going to be the person who will kind of help them through the whole process. So it is true, you are going to be a key to success for the Scout. You serve as advisor, consultant, mentor, NAG. You are the person watching over that Scout's advancement. You want to encourage the candidate to complete the requirements, like I said, kind of nagging. You're also a resource for the Scout. You're the person that they're going to go to find out what they need to do and what's out there and where are the forms and all that. Hopefully you can give them some project ideas and refer them to people to contact. And if you can't, you can go to your district and they can give you ideas to pass along to the Scout. You also explain to the parents that the candidate has to complete the requirements, not them. Don't get into the situation where at the end the board of review looks at the Scout and says, did you really do this project, or did your parents do it? And the Scout tells him, well, really my parents did it, and he fails his board of review. This is the same as any other Boy Scout rank. The boy has to do the requirements, nobody else. It's not Cub Scouts, it's Boy Scouts. So he has to do the project. He has to manage the project, not his parents. And that's true for all of the requirements. He has to be the one doing it. Sometimes people, parents, others that are concerned are so concerned about him getting to Eagle that they're willing to jump in and do it for him. And it's just not the way advancement works in Boy Scouts. And you're a positive adult in his life. You're going to be the one helping him through. You're going to be the one using logic and common sense to help him overcome obstacles and hopefully reach a successful outcome and become an Eagle Scout.
Here are some guidelines for advisors. First off, you adhere to the Eagle Scout advancement process as described in the Guide to Advancement, Chapter 9. Chapter 9 of the Guide to Advancement contains the BSA official process and policies for the Eagle Scout Award. So you should be, as subject matter expert, very familiar with Chapter 9 of the Guide to Advancement. An advisor's role is to support the Scout and to guide them through making the kinds of decisions that will help them meet the Eagle requirements. Advisors do not have the authority to dictate changes, withdraw approval previously granted by the district or council, or make any other directive action. Instead, Eagle Scout advisors strive for a positive experience by encouraging Scouts to make wise decisions and follow logical processes as they work through the requirement. In this way, we assist the Scout to become successful, not just with their project, but we provide an experience that will help them throughout their life.
Right at the get-go. Also, there is a Life to Eagle process presentation. It's a YouTube presentation similar to this one, and it's geared towards the Scout and the parents. So and any unit leader that wants to just know what the process is. You're going to be the expert on this whole thing, but this gives them an overview of the process and should answer the scouts' questions and the parents' questions. It would be good to have the scout view that video and the parents view the video, and any unit leader that's in your unit that's interested in this whole Life to Eagle process view the video.
An advisor should be designated for every scout as they pass their life board review. And then soon after, you get together with the scout and start working with them on planning their project. Again, what you're doing is motivating them, giving them suggestions. It's up to the scout to actually plan what they're going to do for a project and to contact the beneficiaries and that sort of thing. An advisor's work with the scout can be through face-to-face meetings, telephone calls, email, or by video conferencing. But face-to-face is preferred. Regardless the method of contact, discussions with the scout should be relaxed, respectful, helpful, friendly, courteous, and kind. Well, you get the picture. Again, you're not in charge of making sure that he or she does the project. It's their responsibility to do a project. You're there as a counselor and mentor. At the first meeting with the scout, go over their advancement history and what they still need to get done to finish Eagle. Talk about project ideas. Remind the scout that it takes usually about 6 months from the time they think of an idea to the time they finish the project, so that they should give themselves plenty of time to get the project done. Go through the required merit badges for Eagle and find out what still needs to be done. And remember that some of those badges take 3 months to complete. Talk about position of responsibility. Position of responsibility between Life and Eagle is for 6 months. Make sure that the scout is in a position of responsibility and is active. Talk about what staying active in your unit means. It usually means being registered, attending meetings, that sort of thing. And then go over the Life to Eagle process with the scout so they understand what it is. And we're going to talk about the process next. So let's go through the Eagle process flow. So at this point, the scout should have passed their life board review. Now, they have probably been working badges since they joined scouting. So there's just a reminder here that they need to complete 13 required Eagle badges, and they need to complete 8 optional merit badges, and they can have started work on those at any time. So after they pass their life board review, use the workbook and get the project approved. So they figure out what the project is they want to do. They use the workbook. We'll talk a little bit more about the workbook. Write up the proposal for the project and get that approved by the unit and the district. Once the project has been approved by district, then the scout can start working on it. They can't really work on it until it's approved by district. It can't get approved by district until it's approved by the unit and the beneficiary. But once it's approved by the district, then they can start using the workbook to help plan and execute the project. And then at the end, once the project's done, on the project side, they write up the project there's a report section in the workbook. They use that, and then they get it signed off by the beneficiary. While they're doing their project, they also should be serving for 6 months as a unit in a position of responsibility. They also at that point can ask for recommendation letters. They don't have to wait until the very last minute to do that. There is a thing, one of the 6 steps is to fill out a statement of ambitions and life purposes. Your life purpose, that is actually a template that they can download and fill it out. It takes all of 5 minutes to fill out, so they should get that ready. And then they need a Scoutmaster conference once they have all the merit badges and they have all their positions of responsibility and they've been in the unit for 6 months, and they're all ready for their Eagle Border Review. They get a Scoutmaster conference and all together for their Eagle Border Review. In the paperwork side, the unit should provide an Internet Advancement or Scout Book Advancement Report, Scout History Report, and present that with everything else. Now, at the very beginning, right after their Life Border Review, is probably a good time for the Scout to obtain a 1-inch binder and start putting all of this paperwork that they're going to accumulate into that binder. And it keeps it neat and all in one place. We call that an Eagle packet, but there's really no packet involved. It's just this binder with all this paperwork in it. After they've got everything done, there is a checklist that is on the 6 steps. Just go through that checklist, and that helps you make sure that all the paperwork is done. And then they fill out the Eagle application. You can actually now download the Eagle application from Scoutbook or Internet Advancement, partially filled in, has the merit badges filled in and that sort of thing. And then they finish filling the rest of it in, making any corrections that are on it, putting the reference information on there, and print that out. And it's signed by the unit leader, which is the Scoutmaster, and the committee chair of the unit. And then it's ready to get presented to the, all this stuff gets presented to a district verifier is the title they use. And that person then makes sure all the paperwork's in order, Scouts registered, all that kind of stuff. And then you're ready for a border review, and the district will assign, will invite the Scout to a border review. And after the border review, the paperwork goes to council and national, and they become an Eagle Scout. So that's the process, Life to Eagle process, kind of in a nutshell. We're going to talk about a little bit more stuff now. These are the 13 required badges for Eagle. Notice that on some of the badges, there is an OR, so environmental science or sustainability. So either one of those would count for Eagle. Emergency preparedness or life-saving, cycling or hiking or swimming. So it's in that category. They would, the Scout would have to have done one of these badges. That's what the OR means. So there are 13 total. If they do happen to do both of the ORs, like emergency preparedness or life-saving, they did both of those, then one would be counted as Eagle and the other one would be counted as one of the 8 optional merit badges. So there's 21 total, 13 required, and 8 optional. The Scout needs to serve for 6 months with the unit in a position of responsibility. Now, serving actively means that they're doing something that the unit leader requires them to do, and it's been communicated to them what that is in that position of responsibility. As an advisor, all you need to do is make sure that they and their unit leader, the Scoutmaster, are talking about this position of responsibility, and they are actively serving in that position of responsibility for 6 months. Note that the positions of responsibility are different for troops, crews, and ships. This is just a reminder not to put off the project. The project should probably get started as soon as possible. After they are a Life Scout, they should start planning what they want to do and then getting it approved. They can't really do detailed planning and any work on the project until it is approved by the district. That's part of the requirement. It has to be approved. And it's not just approved by the unit, it has to be approved by the district before they can start work on it. But the sooner, the better. This is Eagle Scout Requirement 5. It is the same as you would see in the Scouts BSA handbook. As with every rank requirement, questions are often answered by reading and understanding the rank requirement. So we're going to talk more about the requirement, but that's where we go. We always go to the requirement for answers. Now in the requirement, it says that the Scout must use Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook as part of doing the requirement, doing the project. So where do they find the Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook? Well, it is available at the council website in the Eagle Scout process. One of those 6 steps is the link to the Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook. They must download that to their hard disk and open it up in Adobe Acrobat Reader. They really can't do anything with it online. If they try, it's going to get messed up and they're going to have to redo all the work. So they must download it to their hard disk and they must open it in Adobe Acrobat Reader and then use that as their template for their documentation of their project. The first part of the Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook are instructions. It is my recommendation that you read the instructions and the Scout read the instructions and the parent read the instructions. They're only like 3 or 4 pages long. They'll be redundant to some extent on other things that you've read, but it definitely gives them information about what is expected of them and what their rights are as an Eagle candidate. So they should read the instructions. 90% of the issues with Eagle Scout projects can be avoided if they read that README first file and they read the instructions in the workbook. This will show you where you can find the Eagle Scout Service Project Workbook on the 6 steps of the Eagle process. Don't just click through as if you know what you're doing to download it, because it really, when you click on it, there are instructions. You need to read the instructions because it really walks the person through downloading the document to their hard drive and then opening it in Adobe Acrobat Reader, which is the only way to open this document. The Service Project Workbook has a number of sections to it, and I'll just go through them really quickly here. The very first thing you're going to see are instructions. I mentioned that before. Make sure that they read the instructions, and you read the instructions at the beginning of the workbook. Then the next major section is a proposal and approval section for the proposal. Included with that is a fundraising application. The proposal section is the only section that needs to be filled out by the Scout to get the project approved. Nothing else needs to be generated to get the project approved other than that proposal section. We don't want the Scout spending a lot of time doing planning of a project that may never get approved. So the proposal section is all we really require for getting the project approved. We'll talk about fundraising a little bit. There is a project plan section, which is optional. It is for the Scouts use only. Nobody approves the project plan section, and it can actually be left blank. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And then execution of the project, there is a execution report, a final report of the project that is in a section called a report section, project report section. That's the final section in the service project workbook. This is a picture of a typical Eagle packet. Again, the Eagle packet is nothing more than a 1-inch binder with all the paperwork inside. It's a good idea to start with that right from the get-go. Keeps everything clean, dry, and not wrinkled up. There is a guide for project advisors, and where you want to go is underneath the videos. There's a section called Eagle Project Ideas, and then there's a line that says note for Eagle Project approvers, unit leaders, and boards of review. That's kind of your guide that explains a lot of the ins and outs of what we're looking for when we approve a project. So I would suggest that as the Eagle advisor that you go ahead and look at that guide and get an idea of what districts look at to approve a project.
So what kind of a project works and what doesn't work? So looking again at the requirement, it says to plan, develop, and give leadership to others in a service project helpful to the community. Well, the community, as far as the Boy Scouts of America is concerned, local community is actually, the community is everywhere in the world, so it's pretty much unlimited. He can do a project to benefit a village in Uganda if he wants to. So it doesn't have to be local in his community. It has to be nonprofit. It's got to be for a not-for-profit organization, such as the United Way, Habitat for Humanity, the U.S. Forest Service. Government agencies work. Any church works. Communities can, like a parks district or something like that works. It even can be for a park that's owned by a company. Let's say a company owns a building and they have a public park in the front of their building that's open to the public, and it has some park benches there that need to be refurbished. That can be a valid Eagle project as long as the money and the effort is going towards that public space. That would work, even though the company may be a for-profit company. Originality. This is something that comes up all the time. A project can be anything that the scout dreams up. Doesn't have to be something canned that we know about. But it can be something that somebody else has done. It doesn't have to be original. If somebody else did a bridge over a trail as an Eagle project, another scout can do another bridge over a different trail as an Eagle project. So it doesn't have to be original. It doesn't have to be lasting. Collections are okay. It does have to satisfy leadership and things like that, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be a lasting thing. So the sky is pretty much the limit of what is the project, as long as as far as originality. All right, let's look at finding a project and what kind of a project works and who has responsibility for planning and things like that. So the scout is responsible for planning and directing the project. It's not the parent's responsibility to plan or direct the project, and it's not your responsibility to plan or direct the project. If you start seeing a parent jumping in there and trying to get the project done because the scout has taken so long to get it working, or for any other reason, jump in there and let the parent know that if the parent does the project, if the parent ends up directing and planning the project, then the scout is not going to get credit for the project. The parent is taking that advancement requirement away from the scout, and the scout's not going to get Eagle. The scout's the one that needs to do the requirement, not the parent. Now, keep in mind there are no minimum hours for a project, and no one can tell the scout that there's minimum hours, and no one can hint to the scout that there are minimum hours. And no one can say, well, in our district we have 300 average hours per project. Isn't that interesting? Well, the scout's going to take that and interpret it as 300 hours is the minimum number of hours, and I have to have a project that has 300 hours. That's not the intent of the requirement. The intent of the requirement is that the scout show leadership and does a project for his community. If he does that, then he's going to get the hours. He's going to get the hours because of planning. He's going to get the hours because resources are going to be needed that he's directing that are going to use the hours. So he's going to get the hours. So don't focus on hours. Focus on leadership and planning. Routine labor is not normally appropriate for a project, and give you an example of routine labor would be pulling weeds at a school football field. So pulling weeds is something that the school does all the time. They hire out for someone to come in and pull weeds. It's routine labor. So that would not be appropriate for a project. Let's say a scout mows lawns, his neighbor's lawns, and he does that every week. And then all of a sudden now he's going to say, well, I want a project that I'm going to mow lawns of my neighbors because they really need mowing. Well, that's routine labor. It wouldn't be appropriate for an Eagle Scout project. Now keep in mind that what is routine labor for one scout may not be for another scout. If you live on a ranch, fixing fencing is very often routine labor. They go out and on a routine basis, they go out and they fix fencing on the ranch. For a scout to go out and fix fencing for the U.S. Forest Service, it may be a routine job for someone who's lived on a ranch, but it's definitely not a routine job for a city kid. He's probably never fixed a fence in his life. So for him, it would be a good project. How am I going to figure out how to fix a fence in this Forest Service grounds or Bureau of Land Management grounds? So he's going to have to do some planning. He's going to have to figure it out. He's going to solve a problem, and that makes a good for a good Eagle project. We talked about what's on this slide, which has to do with community being a non-for-profit and a for-profit, and a for-profit owning something outside. One of the other things on the slide, though, is that only one Eagle Scout candidate can get credit for a project. So there's no such thing as brothers working on a project, and it's the same project and they both get credit for it. So it's just like one Eagle Scout gets credit for the project, one manager at a time. Now the projects can't be performed for the Boy Scouts of America, the councils, districts, the troop, or the properties that the BSA owns. So you can't do a project for Geronimo or the Herd Scout Pueblo, although both of those places need a lot of work. It's got to be for somebody outside of scouting. Now the project can be for the chartering organization as long as it's not directly helping the troop. So fixing up, painting rooms at a church would count as a project normally. A project can't be a fundraiser. You can't just collect money for a beneficiary. It's got to be something else. We are not fundraisers, and collecting money and just giving the money to the organization is not considered an Eagle project. Now there are some fundraising requirements. Fundraising may be needed for a project. We would rather that the Scout never doesn't fundraise at all, and that he just get donations of materials, and there's no fundraising involved at all. But if there is fundraising that's involved to buy food or to feed the people that are working or to buy materials, there are notes in your notes for Eagle project approvers, unit leaders, and boards of review that I pointed to. There is a whole section there on fundraising, and it would be good to read it and try to understand.
There is a fundraising application that's in the workbook, in the service project workbook. That is required if the Scout is going to earn $500 or more, and that money comes from anybody who is not related to the Scout, not related to the unit, not in the unit, or related in the unit family, and not the beneficiary. If it's coming from outside that sphere and it's $500 or more, then a fundraising application, which is in the service project workbook, needs to be filled out. Now it needs to be approved by the district project approver, and if it's over $500 from one source, from one person, $500 in cash from one person, then it has to also be approved by the council.
Here are some examples of projects: setting up a community study center for children who need a place to do homework, or preparing plans for and building a footbridge on a trail in a national forest, maybe establishing children's libraries. There is a guide with points of contact for the ideas for Eagle projects, and it's on our Eagle page. So something to look at.
Okay, so the Scout finds a project and finds a beneficiary for the project, and then they agree, the Scout and the beneficiary agree on what the Scout's going to do, and then the Scout writes it up in the project proposal section of the service project workbook. And he or she has the beneficiary sign the proposal section, saying that they agree that this is the work that they would like to have the scout do. And then the unit committee has somebody in the unit committee sign it for the unit, and the scoutmaster signs it. After those three people have signed it, then it goes to the district, and the district's always the last to sign it. There is a district project, Eagle Project approver. If you don't know who that is, contact your district advancement chairman. They'll be able to tell you who it is, and they have to approve the project before any work is done, including detailed planning of the project. So once they have approved it, then the scout can start work on the project. Okay, so what is it that we are looking for at the district level for approving a project? Well, every project has to pass these 5 tests. The first one is the project provides sufficient opportunity to meet the requirements. Well, what requirements are we talking about? We're talking about requirement number 5 on the Eagle Scout requirements. So what we're looking for is there an opportunity for planning and developing the project, for giving leadership to others, and the project will be helpful? Those are all part of the requirement. The next test is the project appears to be feasible. Then safety issues will be addressed. In the proposal section, there needs to be some discussion about safety issues, and that detail addressing of those safety issues will be done in the project planning phase. The scout does not have to address all of the safety issues in detail at this point, but they need to allude to them and say that they will be addressed in detail in the planning stage. Also, that action steps for further detailed planning are included. There's actually a section in the proposal section in the workbook to talk about, well, what kind of further planning steps are you going to do? It's kind of plan the plan. And then 5, the scout is on the right track for a reasonable chance for a positive experience. Again, I would refer you to the notes for Eagle Project approvers, unit leaders, and boards of review for a detailed discussion of this part. Now, while the scout is putting all of this together, make sure that the scout is keeping track of time. Their hours, your hours, anybody they're talking to and planning the project or getting ideas for the project. All of that time counts. They should think of themselves as being on the clock for all of these hours, and they need to make sure that all their time is tracked and all of anybody else's time is tracked. And right at the beginning is when they should start tracking time, because at the end it takes a lot of remembering to get all the time in there, and very often they will miss hours because they haven't been keeping track.
Okay, well, when we start talking about the project and the project proposal, then we start talking about district getting involved. So let's look at the district and council involvement with the Eagle Scout real briefly here. So the first time officially that the district gets involved is at the project proposal stage. We already talked about the fact that the proposal is reviewed by somebody at district and they sign off on the proposal. And then you probably are aware that at the end the packet gets submitted to a person we call the district verifier, who looks at the packet, makes sure everything's there, and that person schedules a board of review. Well, we are introducing a new person now, and this person is the project coach. Now, the project coach doesn't replace you as an Eagle advisor. What the project coach does is, right after the proposal is signed off by the district reviewer, the project coach gets in touch with the scout and offers assistance in helping to plan the project and filling out that section of the workbook, which is the planning section. They also help them pull together the final paperwork that has to go to the verifier. So this project coach is kind of a person that fills in at the district level between the proposal stage and this final paperwork stage. They, like I mentioned, they don't supplant you. They supplement, and they're a go-to person. They're like the district expert on projects. So it's a good person for you to talk to as well as the scout progresses through the project cycle of the whole Eagle to Life to Eagle cycle. Okay, so then the verifier gets handed the paperwork at the end after all the merit badges are done and everything, and then the verifier sets up a review, which is the Eagle Board of Review, and there's an Eagle Board that's run by a district person that reviews the scout's progress and signs him off to become an Eagle and signs off his Eagle rank. Then the application itself gets sent to council, and we have a person at council called a council certifier, and what she does is she looks at the application and enters it into the system so that National can review it and approve it. And then it goes to National. National approves it, and then a certificate is actually mailed to the scout, and that's how the scout knows that they've been approved. If anything is wrong, then either the council certifier will get in contact with the scout, or National will tell the council certifier to get in contact with the scout. But usually it's this person who would contact the scout if there's something wrong administratively with the paperwork. Takes about 6 weeks from the time the board meets, actually 6 weeks from the time the council certifier receives the application to the time the application is mailed and the scout receives it. If they don't receive it in 6 weeks, somebody should contact council and make sure that paperwork wasn't lost somewhere. Also realize that the district is available to answer questions. That should be your first point of contact. This project coach for the project issues, the verifier for any paperwork issues are probably your good points of contact at the district level. And it's best to engage with the district early and often. Touch base if you have questions about what proposals this guy or woman approves and which ones she has problems approving. I might give you a good idea at the very beginning when you're first starting out with the scout and putting together proposals. Okay, so this shows another slide of the difference between your position, which is the Eagle Advisor, and this Eagle Service Project Coach, which we're introducing now this year. Again, you're the entire process, and you're responsible for mentoring the scout through the whole thing. They are pretty much responsible for making sure that life is a bit easier for you guys going through the project cycle. The focus of this guy or woman is purely requirement 5, the project stages. They are appointed by the council or the district, and they're around for a short period of time to help you and the scout through the project phase of the Life to Eagle project, Life to Eagle cycle.
Okay, so the project is now approved, and now we want to start work on the project. So the scout's really good, anxious to start working on the project. They probably have never really sat down and planned a project before. So it's probably a good idea to get together with the Eagle Project Coach, if one is available at your district, and sit down and look at that project plan section of the workbook and plan out the project. That project plan section of the workbook is there purely as a template to try to help a scout plan out a project. Um, it's really something meant for the scout and the beneficiary to look at, that this is how the plan, this is the plan, this is how the project is going to uh, come to fruition. These are kind of the stages that the project will have. It is not required. That section is not required. And again, as I mentioned before, at the final review, it could be blank and it would be fine. But it is something to help the teenager get organized so that they can do a good project.
The project report is the final section of the workbook, and when the project's done, when the execution of the project is done, is usually when the final report is put together. So he meets with you, he meets with the project coach for some coaching on how to put together that final report, and then he fills out the boxes that are there in the workbook. Now, I'd like to say something about changes made during the project. If there are substantial changes that are going to be made for the project, they really need to be addressed before the changes are made. For example, and let me give you an example of a substantial change. Let's say the project was to do some trail work and fix a trail in South Mountain Park, and they decide partway through, the ranger says, hey, you know, instead of doing this trail work, what I'd like you to do is put a little garden in front of my my ranger shack at South Mountain. Well, that's a substantial change. The project just changed. The scope went wild. You know, it's a brand new project. Something like that needs to be reviewed by the person who approved the proposal at the district level. So when changes like that are made, or there's a substantial reduction in effort of the project, those sort of changes need to be reviewed and cleared by the person who did the project approval at district originally. So you need to go back and then get something in writing, either an email or a letter or a note or something from that person that says, yes, we realize the changes were made in the proposal and they have been approved by the district, so that can be put in the Eagle packet and submitted with all the rest of the paperwork. The final report of the project has a number of different sections, and they're pretty intuitive. They're good to look at, by the way, at the very beginning. That's why I tell the scouts to read the workbook from cover to cover, because the final report is what the board of review is going to look at to judge whether or not the project was done appropriately. This is the section of the workbook where they would want to see after photos and any other documentation that kind of came with the project. If the photos, some people have difficulty trying to put the photos in the workbook, where the workbook says, you know, insert your photos here. Just take the photos and put them in the Eagle packet so that the board of review has photos. Photos really help. Before and after photos, and during photos taken during the project itself. That's a good thing for the parents to do. You know, hand a camera to the parents and say, hey, take pictures before and after and during the project, and it gets the parents out of the hair of the scout, so the scout can lead the project. So the scout signs and dates the project, like we've said before, in the final plan, and then Scoutmaster signs it, the beneficiary signs it, and that indicates that the project is complete. So the project workbook should be kept with the Eagle packet until the rest of the merit badges are done, and when the rest of the merit badges are done, that's and the position of responsibility is done. When all of that is done, that's the time to to finish up the paperwork.
Now, making sure that all the paperwork is in order is a good thing for you to get involved with as the advisor. You can add value here. Review those 6 steps. Make sure that everything that is on those 6 steps is included in the packet. If there's anything missing, that it is put in. That requirement checker helps a lot in making sure all the different things are there. So kind of go through that with the Scout, make sure that everything is in the packet that you need. And then you can discuss the Eagle Border review process with the Scout and give the contact information of the Eagle Packet Verifier for district to the Scout so that the Scout can arrange an appointment to get the packet to the verifier. If you don't know who that is, again, go to your district advancement chair and they can tell you who that is. Talk a couple of minutes about reference letters. Reference letters can be, we do have a form, one of the 6 forms for reference letters, a template for reference letters that can be printed out, given to a person, and that person can basically fill in the blanks, check off the boxes. It takes all of 5 minutes, and then they can print it off and fold it up and give it to the Scout. Now the references need to get back to district, so it gets back to the district Eagle Board. They can either be given to the Scout, and the Scout puts them in their packet. That's usually what happens. Or they could be sent separately. They can also be sent in the form of email if the district provides an email address you can send reference letters to. Don't worry about references that you can never get. The Board of Review can still process even if you don't get all of the reference letters in. If a Scout does not go to church, does not have a religious advisor, the parent can substitute for that, and you would just put the parent's name in as the reference for the religious reference, and the parent can write fill out one of those forms or write a short letter of how the Scout shows their duty to God, and that takes care of the reference letter for the religious reference. There is a history report for the Scout that can be gotten out of Internet Advancement or Scout Book, and the Scout's BSA history report. That is useful to the district and to the council. So to get that, whoever does your advancement tracking in Internet Advancement or Scout Books, they should print out a history report. That tells the district and the council what is in the system, what is in the BSA system for the Scout. Troopmaster reports or other third-party reports cannot substitute for this because those programs are not BSA databases, so it's not telling us anything about what's in the BSA database, which is what we're after here.
So after getting all that stuff together, the paperwork is done, it's all now in the packet, and it can be submitted to the Eagle Verifier, who looks at the packet and makes sure everything's there and there are no errors. If there are any errors, they'll come back and talk to the Scout about it. It's a good idea that in the packet that the Scout has included photocopies of the merit badges and rank advancement cards. Not required, just a good idea.
All right, so the district verifier will invite the Scout to a board of review. You should expect that board of review to be within 30 days of when the Scout has handed in the paperwork to the district verifier. If it takes longer than that for a board of review to be scheduled in the district, make sure that you reach out to the district verifier to find out what the delay is. They shouldn't be delaying for over 2 months for any particular reason. Who can sit on an Eagle Board of Review? At least 3 people, but not more than 6 members. The district advancement chair or designee would be the facilitator, what they call the chairman of the Board of Review. Anybody else who understands scouting and is willing to live by the BSA policies can sit on a Board of Review. Who cannot sit on the Board of Review? Members of the family, relatives, a scoutmaster, or people in the unit, unless it's a unit-held Board of Review with a district supervision. However, the scoutmaster cannot sit on the Board of Review. They can attend it as a auditor, and often do. Somebody should always be with the scout from the unit at a Board of Review as an auditor, just to make sure that it's being conducted fairly. How long should the Eagle Board take? It should be about 30 minutes and not more than 45 minutes. The review members have to be unanimous to recommend the Eagle candidate to National for approval. Note that the candidate is not an Eagle Scout until the National Board of Review approves the application. Occasionally they reject it. However, the major issue here is administrative delays in processing the application, which could cause delays in issuing the rank. And we find that much more than rejection by by National, because we've done all this pre-work to make sure everything is okay prior to the Board of Review. After the Board of Review, the scout receives their packet back, except for the application and the reference letters and a few of the forms, which go to council to be processed and then electronically sent to National. The Eagle Board of Review coordinator, which is a district level, is or a responsible scout or designated by that body, must ensure that the Eagle Scout rank application, the checklist, and the member summary report or history report, if provided, are sent or delivered to the Council Eagle Services Office in a prompt manner. Talk a little bit about appeals. Eagle Boards of Review can only occur once. So if the scout is for any reason rejected, denied advancement in Eagle Board of Review, then the recourse here is an appeal. Now the appeal, when a scout is not passed, which is extremely rare, by the Board of Review, the Board of Review must in writing tell the scout exactly why they did not pass the board. Then that information goes to the scout, their scout's parent, and the unit. It's also sent to the council. The scout has the right, if they feel that they have done the requirements, they have the right to appeal the decision by the board. That appeal would initially go to the district. The district would set up a appeals review board at the district level, and they would look specifically at the reason why the Board of Review rejected the advancement, and then make a decision. Do they agree with the Board of Review, or do they agree with the scout that the scout should be advanced? If they agree with the scout, then they process the paperwork as normal. If they agree with the Board of Review on the denial, then that information is given to the scout, and the scout then has the option to appeal to council. Again, council would put together a Board of Review, not a Board of Review, but a appeals board to look at specifically why it was denied. The council won't look at the whole thing. We aren't going to do an entire Board of Review again. We're just going to look at the reason why it was denied, and we will get information from all the interested parties. Then we will make a decision one way or another. we would give that recommendation to National. National would then compile yet another appeals board, and they would do the same exercise. They would look at what we said. They would probably reach out to the unit again and to the scout again, and then they would make the final decision. So that's how the appeals process works. In summary, we'd like to draw attention to these 2 points that are often overlooked. Yes, overlooked. Sometimes we get so wrapped up into the specifics of the project and maintaining some mythical set of standards that we forget the real scouting connections. The importance of the Eagle Scout Service Project does not lie in the end product. It's not so much about what got built, for example. It's about the journey, the experience. Eventually a bench or a table will rot and crumble. Eventually a bookcase will be replaced. Soon a bicycle safety rodeo will be forgotten, but that's okay. It's in the experiences, everything that happens, every decision, every aha moment, every night spent at the drawing board, every hour of work at the site, giving leadership and more that teaches the lessons we want. It's about sticking with something and seeing it through. It's about personal growth. It's about learning a skill and applying it to something else that's important in life. It's about learning another skill that, though it could have been forgotten, served to provide the experience and the confidence to do something else entirely different that perhaps the scout never thought they could do. And now a final important point. From time, perhaps more often than we like, we may encounter dedicated scouters who are unfamiliar with the Guide to Advancement and who continue to operate with outdated national policies and procedures. You may also find volunteers who are familiar with the Guide to Advancement, but who choose to ignore it. Then there are those who, over the years, who have come up with their own versions of the scouting program. Please understand that this presentation you've just been through has been created and approved through the National Advancement Committee. It is official. When you encounter people who question what you've learned today, help them find the correct and current processes in the Guide to Advancement. If they continue to question the national procedures we've been discussing, then you should take this up with your Council Advancement Committee, and if necessary, with your Scout Executive. After this has been done, if the issues persist, please let National know at advancementteam@scouting.org. And finally, here are your resources again. The best resource out there is our council website for the Eagle process. And at the bottom of the screen, I have listed the email address of the Grand Canyon Advancement Committee. If you have particular questions, feel free to ask. We'd rather have you ask now rather than assume something that may be incorrect, and we run into issues when we're processing the final application. Thank you, and thank you for listening.